we are back for Triad Wars 3 Round 2, Part 2, covering the next 4 players. Piggyman, oh god, I should have looked at who it was before I started the video. Piggyman, Chicony, Brenn, and, oh no, Delial. Very forgettable player. Alright, so we start with Piggy versus Seifer. Seifer has first turn. Seifer I built a 5-7-5 hand for. I thought it was interesting none of the players ended up going for 5-7-5s. Just with 3s missing, 5-2 becomes a way to deal with opposing 7s that I think is a viable option, but players tended to use their level 3 cards on 7-4-1-4s and felt a lot better with those than 5-7-5-2s, which would take a level 4 card to use. So I'm not saying this was a wrong decision or anything, I just thought it was curious that no humans went in this direction at all, because it seemed to me a plausible direction. Piggy, on the other hand, went with 7-4-1-4s, which we've seen and will continue to see a lot of, 7-7 corners, and a 6-2-2-6, which will prove a very interesting card in this matchup. Seifer at first turn makes a move in 5. I think this is a good move. This is sort of a pig's double pair hand, actually, where because there are these two opposite pairs of cards, and because each of the pairs shares 2 numbers with a card from the other pair. So 5-7-5-2 and 5-2-5-7 are a pair, but 5-7-5-2 also shares the 5-7 with 5-7-2-5 from the other pair of cards, and that guarantees there are going to be just so many synergies that at least 3 corners are necessarily, with any of those cards put in the center, at least 3 corners are necessarily set up for pluses and sams with one card having both sides of it. So for instance, after this starter, if Seifer followed up with 5-2-5-7 and 7, that would set up 5-7-5-2 in both 4 and 8, and you can find similar different setups for each other corner. So I've always found this an appealing way to build a hand. And this is, of course, any of those cards in the center is going to be a reasonable and quite dangerous starter. Piggy goes with 7-7-4-2 and 7, which he said, this isn't the kind of move Turds or Deli would make, but I'm a safe player, and makes a safe move that he sets up his 6-2-2-6 and 4, and has 7-4-1-4 to take back an 8. He has 2 cards for 2 squares, but importantly, he's on second turn, so he's always going to be able to hold on to those 2 cards if he wants to. His opponent, Seifer, having 2 cards for 2 squares, because they have 5-7-5-2 for 4, it's more important to be able to capture the corner than to be able to flip the center card, usually. And either 5-7-2-5 for 8 or 5-2-5-7 for 8. But because these are distinct cards, the first turn player will not be able to hold on to all of them for the end game. So it makes sense to make a defensive move like this. But I thought Seifer's move was really strong here, 1-5-6-5 and 2. And it started to look a bit dangerous for Piggy, who is afforded no safe squares except for 6-2-2-6 and 4, but that flips things and allows the combo back, so is not safe either. And I always find it just difficult to play these J setups with no safe moves. I think they're just, it's very hard to ever win out of them. And even if you find something that looks pretty good, they'll often be able to apply a lot of pressure on you on the formation afterwards. So you're going to have to find multiple good moves in a row. And the more situations you're put in where you have to find multiple good moves in a row, the more likely you are to blow something. So when I was watching Piggy play this game, I eventually decided that I thought there were 2 pretty safe ways to kind of calm the waters here. I thought 1-4-7-4 and 1 seemed like a good idea because all their ways to take you also flip the card in 7, and then you can combo back to pretty good effect, I thought. So I thought that was one safe way to take the game. And the other move I quite liked was 1-4-7-4 and 8, because they can take from 9, but none of the moves they take from a 9 set up synergy to play something in 6. So Piggy could follow up with 6-2-2-6 and 4, and the only way, comboing the card in 5, which combos the card in 8, the only way they could combo back is 5-2-5-7 and 6, which is the plus wall on the card in 5, and then Piggy would have 2-4-7-7 and 3. So these were the kind of 2 paths I saw to heading towards a tie, but I think Piggy actually found a better move than both, and I thought this was a really great move, and it was 1-4-7-4 and 9. And the idea is sort of to be the same as a move in 8, except it more forces the formation. If you go in 8, they can set up the S in 3, they can set up the T and 9, and occasionally they go in other spots. But a move in 9 is a little more forcing the action to be likely to go in 8. And we just saw in the line I had found that that was a pretty good situation for Piggy. So I really like this move, and it actually turns out here that I think every move in 8 is just losing for Seifer, which makes this a really strong move. 5-7-2-5 flips too much. It flips the card in 7, and 6-2-2-6 combos back and just definitely wins. 5-2-5-7 and 8 can't be comboed back, but then I think Piggy should play 6-2-2-6 and 6, and he locks in the cards in 5, 6, and 9 at once. And I think that looks pretty strong. No, that's against 5-7-5-2 and 8. He'd do that because then he still has the card safe in 7 as well. Against 5-2-5-7 and 8, I think 6-2-2-6 and 4 looks good. But 6-2-2-6 and 1 of 4 or 6 is really strong against any move in 8. That 6 upward is just really hard for these 5-7-5s to deal with. And the 6-2-2-6 is just going to be an absolutely critical card this game. I think there's a tie in 1 here. I don't remember what I looked at. But it's pretty hard to find saves for red. They do end up going in 1 with 5-7-2-5. And now Piggy finds the only win, a really nice move. Some would say a little reminiscent of Turd's win over Delial, especially given that the cards are in the exact same squares. And Piggy finds the win in 6, again using... I want to go to the next slide. That totally ruins the drama of this. Again, exploiting the fact that they just can't fight that upward 6 at all. They have nothing to do in 3, and they have a different card that's good in each of 4 and 8, and they can't hold on to both. Just really nice win. It was the only win in this position. I think this is a fantastic game from Piggy. I love the move in 9. I love the move in 6. I'm really torn between Piggy and Wavy at this point for game of the round, because I loved Wavy's sequence of capturing this opponent's starter in 9 from 6. They recapture in 8, and then he hits them with this big setup in 4. And I love this sequence from Piggy, and what I think is genuinely a difficult J to defend, finding this move in 9 that applies a ton of pressure and following it up with a great win in 6. So the game finishes 6-4, and Piggy wins. Great game by Piggy. He went out in the second round last time, so it's really nice to see him advance, but it's also nice to see him advance in such style. Then we get Delial versus Crono. Delial was... we've only seen one person do a 4-level 4 card hand so far, and it was actually Dalamar's losing hand. So certainly not the favorite of players, but Delial is the second to try it, and I believe will be the last to try a hand with 3 level 4s. He found just the balance of the hand really appealing. And I think Turds has mentioned that Delial in these sets tends to take lower level cards, right? Tends to keep a balance that's a little lower level. He was drawn to 5-5-5-4-3 on a set where 6s were available. In fact, you could run multiple level 6s. I think he's drawn to hands where, you know, no more than one card is all that much weaker to the others. But I'm not sure. Maybe there were other reasons. He did say he favored this because of balance and just could pick a strong card for each corner, a level 3 that plays well off them, and he was ready to go. On the other side, we see more 7-5-5s. We also see another 6-5-1-5, a card combo I really like. I think it's sort of an underrated level 3 option. It's not as good as 6-6-3-2s. It's not as good as level 4 cards, of course, but just has a little nice power to it, right? If it's ever facing towards a 6, the 5s can suddenly plus 7s. They can naturally plus wall 6s pretty easily. Can just deal with most of the threats pretty well while having decent power in 3 directions. And yes, they do get overpowered. They're not the most powerful thing, but they're a card type I quite like. So Crono is first turn, and he goes with a protected corner. And I think Delial makes a really good reply in 7-2, 4-6, and 3. An adjacent corner setting up a same for him in 6, but not a same for them. So if they leave that square open, They're not going to have great stuff there, and he's going to have much bigger threat there. Also setting up 2/6/2/6 to dominate in both 2 and 8. Again, Crono does not have cards that are good in both those squares. I think this is a pretty difficult position. It is hard for, though maybe they still should, but it is hard for Crono to play in 6 because he immediately gets comboed via 8, right? Delial attacks the side. Right, I've talked about this a lot. With adjacent corner plays, often the first turn player wants to block the in-between square. You've set up a bigger threat there, so first of all, it denies your opponent a square they're better than you have. And second of all, they really need to be able to set up an L that threatens 5. But here, Delial, notice, they have that 7 up, and it's hard for them to defend next to it. They only have one card with the 7 down, so by sort of attacking the side with the high number facing out, they have trouble blocking that in-between square. And indeed, I think going in 6 might work, but you really got to calculate it out. The AI actually, Crono, played, I think, a fantastic move of 5-2, 5-7, and 4, realizing a few things. One is that card's never really going in 6 because it gets comboed back so hard from 8. And if that card's never going in 6, it doesn't have a lot of play. And we got to play something that can sort of synergize with other cards. 5-7, 5-2 might play well off this. Maybe not, because it's not like it has many 7s it needs to same. But just a card that can be recaptured and trying to control space in a position that I think is difficult. I think this is a very good move, actually. Delial, though, spots... You've still got this sort of right weakness, and there's a wall of 6s. You only have one rightward 7. I can just extend that wall and give them this directional difficulty, where the 5-7, 5-2 can only take one of those cards. And again, I think Crono makes a great move here. I think this is the only move that doesn't just lose immediately, of 6, 5, 1, 5, and 8. I gotta keep the 5-7, 5-2 because it only is going to have one capture and nothing else will. So if I can capture anything with the 6, 5, 1, 5, I'll do it. And also calculating the specific line, something like 7, 6, 2, 4, and 7 looks obvious, but I think Crono survives with 2, 4, 7, 6 in 1 when 5, 7, 5, 2 is good enough going up, down, and we've captured just enough to get away with the tie, and 5, 7, 5, 2 will always capture one of the cards in 3 or 6 as well. And I think that's going to just about sneak out with the tie. Delial, however, goes for a different pressure play, 2, 6, 2, 6, and 2, where the AI has to realize, which squares am I going to be good in and which squares am I not going to be good in. And I think the problem card is 2, 4, 7, 6 is meh in 1, is not great in 5, and is not doing a lot of work in 7. So you got to get that out of your hand, which the AI does. And then the question is, where does 5, 7, 5, 2 fit best? And it goes well in 5, and importantly, it goes well in 1, especially if Deli's played 4, 6, 7, 1, and 5, which doesn't flip the card in 4. It can't recapture the card in 4, but Deli can't capture the card in 4 from 5 as well as the card in 8 from 5. So I think the critical tie here was 2, 4, 7, 6, and 7, but the AIs at this level, I think they have a lot of good positional instincts, and it has saved a very difficult position here multiple times this game. Does not have great calculation and plays in 1, allowing Delial to take the win. I think a nice win by Delial, maybe a little marred by the opponent screwing up late, but Delial applied kind of maximal pressure at every turn, and they had to be very precise to this point. So I think just a nice win that ended with a bad calculation, but you could see Crono was making pretty good moves and surviving tough spots. We move on to Brenn versus Ramza. Sorry, I forgot to have the avatars here, but I think they will show up in a couple images. Ramza goes first. Brenn has gone stuff we've seen before. 7-7-4 for a level 5. 7-6-6, a little less common, but we've also seen a bunch of them. 7-4-1-4s for the level 3s. And then, interestingly, 5-5-5-2, which is a good recapture of 7s. And we've seen a choice. It's a choice we've now seen a couple times, but is definitely the one really offbeat decision in his hand. So Ramza starts with 6, 2, 2, 6, and 8. A starter I was kind of delighted to see because I didn't actually know this AI could find side starters. Some of my AIs kind of automatically start with corner starters, some automatically start with 5 starters, some vary between 5 and corners, but I didn't actually know that any could start with a side starter, so I was really pleased to see it, because the way it finds a move is based on these set of principles, and so it's cool that these principles can lead to side starters, even if side starters are a little less thematically clear in kind of how Triple Triad works, which is sort of, I like to think of it as the rule of evens, right? If you have two out-facing sides and they take one, you can always retake the other. And so there's always this kind of reason to have something with two out-facing sides. If something has zero out-facing sides, it's already safe. That's fantastic, right? But if something is one out-facing side and they take it, well, what are you going to do? You know, you have to have calculated some recombo or something else, but at this fundamental level, you want your cards to have even numbers of out-facing sides. And if AIs are based on principles that are based on ideas like that, it's going to be hard for them to find moves like this. And I'm really delighted they can. And I also don't think this is, you know, a bad move or anything. I think this is a pretty good move. It coordinates well with 7-6-2-4. The 6 up is not something Brenn can't take, but it's something Brenn has trouble playing off. I was really pleased it made this move. Brenn goes for 7-4-1-4 and 7, and the AI goes, I can take that. I don't see the problem, so I'm going to take that. And Brenn's plan was clearly to set up a move kind of like Wavy's, setting up a big threat in 5 with 1-6-7-6. And there's sort of the question of, should the opponent block 5? Well, that looks problematic, because then Brenn gets 9 for free, and that's going to lock in 8, and that seems not ideal. And, you know, then we don't have a capture from 3 if we need to capture the card in 6. So that looks tricky. And going in 9 allows the combo in 5. And again, don't have any captures in 3, so that looks pretty dangerous too. So I liked playing sort of a little away from the action. I thought Brenn would try for the move in 2. And I think the AI actually would have blundered there again, not calculated the last 3 moves correctly, though that is a tie, though I don't remember what I looked at, and I'm not instantly seeing it now. So I'm just going to move on instead of spending a while calculating. Brenn went for 5-5-5-2 in 1, and the AI found its way to block 5, going up 6-4, and we head to a 5-5 tie. I think a pretty balanced first game. Brenn played kind of sneakily, and I think led to a little advantage, but not enough to press that hard. I think pretty balanced overall, and we head to game 2, where we now have avatars. We have Ramza, and Brenn chose Jigglypuff as his avatar. So this time Brenn goes first, chose to stay with the same hand, and goes with 1-4-7-4 and 2. This has definitely been a pattern in Brenn's games of liking to play some side starters with another card ready to recapture it from both sides with maximal numbers down facing. Here, it's also well supported because 7-4-1-4 can overpower or plus wall anything that could be put in 1 or 3, which doesn't necessarily mean they should avoid those squares, because you can imagine something like 4-1-6-7 in 1, 7-4-1-4 could then be in 4 could be samed back by something in 5. Though there, Brenn would also have to capture with 7-1-4-7. So, hand clearly built to, I have this move in 2, I'm ready to recapture it either way, and if you try to attack it, I can also attack whatever you put next to it if I need to. The AI went again for 6-2-2-6 and 8, and again I'm just really happy to see it can play these side moves. It doesn't set up anything in 5, but the card has nice synergy with 7-6-2-4, and Brenn's cards don't play that well off the 6s. I thought this was a nice move. Brenn plays 5-5-5-2 and 1, getting the weakest card out of his hand, and also sort of again drawing the AI into using maybe their only card with some upward power, and noting, okay, they don't have anything they can do in 3 that I can't capture, though maybe they should play something like 4-1-6-7 and 3. They don't have anything they can put in a square like 9 that I can't capture. They don't have anything they can put... I guess they could go safely in 7, but then Brenn... They have given up all their upward power if they go safely in 7, so then Brenn's card in 1 would be completely safe. So I think this move makes a bunch of sense. The AI ends up just capturing it. and Brenn captures back. And here the AI has to be pretty precise because it has given up all upward power, and I think the move it has to find is it has to realize Brenn has used up his 7-4-1-4, and thus it should go 1, 6, 7, 5, and 3, and the cards in 2 and 3 will be safe, and that will lead to a tie. But instead it rushed to lock in more cards, 6-4, and now Brenn finds that his 7-1-4-7 is just going to be a dominant sweeper at the end, and that locks in the win. And Brenn takes it 6-4. So Brenn advances, and we move on to Chicony, our fourth game of the round. He's playing Squall. He chose a Squall avatar, so instead of just having the same avatar for both, I decided to do one of Griever for Squall, but Chicony is the player on the right. And Chicony has gone with, a hand we've seen many times, some version of 7-4-4s, 7-7-4s, and a 6-6-2-2. And the opposing AI is very similar. 2 7-7s as well, a 6-6-2-2 as well, a 7-4-4 as well, and a 7-6-4-1, which is a level 3 card that probably should have been changed because that should be a level 4 combination. But I think Turds used it as well. It's a nice find. It's a very good card to be able to use on level 3, but I don't think it should be a level 3, but that's okay. You use the cards you get. So Squall goes first. Squall plays a strong corner, and Chicony just takes it, which was seeing your only recapture both uses up a lot of the left power in your hand. You're likely to be left with a left problem. This may be a recurring issue in this matchup. But also, if you recapture, because that is such a high power facing towards 5, it's easy for me to set up an L. And he does so. Sets up what looks like to me like a really nice L, where the opponent has no threat in 5, he has 2 safe cards, it looks pretty good. Now, I think there are a bunch of ways to tie this position for Squall, but he actually finds just clearly the best one, playing in 2. And again, this was found entirely based on its principles, so I'm really pleased with how the principles are running on these AIs, because this is a nice move and one you might not think they'd be able to find. But setting out 2-6-6-2 to potentially dominate in both 1 and 5, setting out 4-1-7-6 to have 5. A very tricky move to face because any move in 1 now loses to 2-6-6-2 and 5, where 4-1-7-6 is just dominant up-down against Chicony's hand. And so has to be very careful. I think Chicony ends up finding the only tie in the position. A very difficult game, because his opening made a lot of sense to me. I think was very coherent, much better than the way Turds captured his opponent's starters. What a terrible move that was. And yet still this move in 2 applied real pressure, and Chicony ends up scraping out with a tie, and I think a very nicely played game by both sides, actually. I think Chicony's reply to the starter was this very coherent plan, and led to a surprisingly difficult position that he then saved really nicely. So we move on to game 2. Chicony changes his hand, and he has a game plan. He starts with 2-2-8-1 and 1, and he did mention after that he had expected the AI to keep the hand and had this specific idea against the hand, where he thought, okay, it'll go safely in the far corner, but now I have 2 safe cards, right? I've locked in 2. I just want to mention here, in this position, I think 4-2, 4-7, and 5 should also be pretty strong. Just setting up tons of combos on the opponent's starter, and they have very few of them in return. They only have 8, and they have nothing in 6. And you have multiple ways to plus or same in both 6 and 8. So I think that would have been very strong here. It does potentially concede 2, but interestingly, because the opponent has already used up so much leftward power, the only thing they can take Magic Mirror from is 4-1-7-6, and then they have no leftward power at all in their hand, and that should be pretty exploitable, I think. So just wanted to mention that as another idea I thought was interesting, but Chicony thought this should be good enough to win. And in fact, according to my AI stuff, I didn't calculate everything, but I did want to check this position because I thought it was interesting. Squall actually finds the only tie in the position. Though it is a move that, makes sense, building out from their safe starter. And making a threat in 5, which no move in 6 could have done. But any position where you give your opponent just one tie is going to be fantastic. You'll notice Chicony has all moves in 3 covered. 6 doesn't set up anything in 5, so it's hard to find something there. So, I think most players, or many players, will end up playing something in 8 here. But just any position where your opponent has to be that precise is just very favorable. Even if it is the single most likely move for them to play, they're still pretty unlikely to find it. Especially when it does give up all leftward power again. Now, maybe this formation isn't one where leftward power will be that needed, but just very dangerous position. Chicony decides to apply pressure with the Z, but the AI does grab safety and does play out a tie. So we move on to game 3. Chicony, the only player to have gone to game 3, but I actually think he played really well both games, and I think the AI has played well both games. So this wasn't a matter of you failed to apply pressure, so the AI got through. It's just sometimes the AI handles the pressure better than other times. Depends on how exactly it works in the position, just like real humans. And more ties does not mean this was badly played. I think Chicony has played very, very well. So we move on to game 3, and Chicony goes first. He has completely changed up his hand. He has now gone for 7-6-6s instead of 7-7-4s for his level 5s. He has gone for 1-6-6-6 Landis. He's gone for 5-4-4-5, a number combo we've not seen anyone else use, but I think is designed to be able to play off the 6s, to be able to handle other 6s and 7s. And 7-5-1-4, which is a number combo I think we talked a little about with Tezuka's game, but is an interesting, the 5-1-4 part is an interesting way to deal with 6s and 7s. Chicony is first turn and goes 6-6-7-2-1, using up the level 5 early, but directing the game leftward, and every single game we've noticed there's a problem with Squall, has trouble with the left direction, and potentially runs out of power there fast. And that's really the story of this game, because they decide, I've got, 7-1-4-7 can capture you from 2, but I need a way to be able to capture you from 4, but gives up so much leftward power to do it. And when Chicony just recaptures, and I think this is already winning with a 6 to the right, the hand's too reliant on 7-1-4-7. Now, much like, which game earlier was it? It was the Delial game, where they had one card with a 7 in that game to the right and this to the left. They do use the only other card that has any capture to try to preserve the 7-1-4-7 for as long as it can be preserved. And this makes sense, but it's not good enough because 6-6-2-7 and 9 is safe. There's no real good move in 5 because every card is a 7-up, and 5-4-4-5 turns out to completely stuff every move there. So they can't go in 5. They don't have a capture in 6. They do have a capture in 2, but if they do that, Chicony just captures back in 5, and they have only 1s to the left. They can't capture anything at the end. They have no play. And so ends up panic going in 3. AIs can panic too, but it makes no difference here. And Chicony plays out a nice 7-3 win. I think a just really well played matchup overall by Chicony. I think there can be this instinct of I should be winning fast, and the more ties means I didn't do it. But in this case, applied pressure, handled pressure. We saw Chicony under more pressure, despite not having made real mistakes, under more pressure than most players here so far have faced, and finding his way out, as well as finding a win in a difficult position. I thought these were impressive games. So overall in the round, hand distributions. We saw 12 different hands. I did count multiple times the same player if they changed hands. But we saw 2 hands that were 4 level 4s. We saw 2 balanced, and we saw 8 hands going 5-5-3-3-3. So I think it clearly players preferred the 2 level 5s and 3 level 3 hands, which is also what I thought would be best at the start. And so I'll say that was borne out, though you may still disagree. You may have thought Delial's hand was most impressive, or one of the 5-4-4-3-3s. I thought the 6s versus 7s count would be pretty close, because more 6s were available, but 7s seemed so powerful in the meta of a no 3s rule, because 6s can't be powered up by 3s to fight against 7s, that I thought 7s would catch up and it would be pretty close. And it was. In fact, before the final game, I think it was exactly tied. But then Chicony went with a heavy level 6 hand for his final game, and 6s narrowly took the lead. But I will claim to be correct on that one too. For having 7s in each direction, So a hand can maximally have, that's not a word, maximally have sevens up, left, right, and down. So 4 sevens. So if everyone made sure to have a 7 in each direction, we would have seen 48 out of 12 games. We've seen 12 hands. As it was, 35 out of 12, so almost 3 sevens directions covered by a 7 per hand. But we saw a lot of range in that. There were some people who definitely had a 7 in every direction, and we saw, for instance, a Dalamar hand that eschewed 7s entirely. For my up-down thesis, which I mentioned last time, that I think human players really like upward and downward maximum numbers much more than they like side-to-side. 7s going up, of the 57s, 33 of them were going up or down, and just barely over half, 17, were going left or right. Now, this might have been a little based on which cards were available, but I think is a really strong case for this being right, that there's something aesthetically pleasing about up-down versus left-right, and humans are much more likely to build hands based on up-down power than based on left-right power. In the only game where we saw more sideways 7s than up-down 7s from human players was Chicony in exactly game 2 of his 3-game match. Now, does this mean players are wrong to do so? Well, if you know there are more 7s going up and down, then suddenly it might make sense to have cards like, if you have to have, say, a 7-4-4-4 in your hand, and you know there are more 7s up or down, well, you're going to want your 7 with the 4s to be facing up or down, so it can deal with the other ones, and you're incentivized to do even more. But it might mean if players had gone in, a 5-2, 5-7 direction, side to side is better than up-down in this meta, probably. I'm not quite sure how to exploit this, but it is worth realizing if you're playing other humans, they are slightly to significantly more likely to put their hand up down, in my opinion. But this, I said this theory last round in the videos, and we immediately saw it even more extreme this round. So the most popular card types. The most popular type was 7-4-4-1s, a level 3 card. Now, because most people had so many level 3s in their hand, right, we saw 8-5-5-3-3-3s, so 3s are 60% of the hand, and in other hand types, still, every hand has to have at least one level 3, so it makes sense that a level 3 would be the most popular card type, but 7-4-4 is very popular. We also saw, I put these out of order, the second one should be 10-7-7-4s, those were by far the most popular level 5s. Then we see 7-6-4s, which were the most popular level 4. We did see one of them out of level 3, because as I mentioned, that 4-1-7-6 is available at level 3. But 7 of them were from level 4s. Clearly, that was the most popular level 4, and was seen quite a lot, despite most people not running level 4s. Then we saw 6-7-6-6s, the secondary choice for a level 5, and 6-6-6-2-2s, the secondary choice for a level 3 card. In round 1, players overall scored 90% with 8 wins and 2 ties. This time that dropped to 7 wins, 5 ties, and a loss, dropping to 73.1%. Again, typo, it should take out the percentage win and just give the number. Sorry about that, I should have looked this over before going to the slides and making my video. But you can see a real drop there, and I think a reasonable guess for next round would be humans will perform around 50%. I really don't have a good guess. I'm supposed to say that one of the reasons Brenn is in the second video rather than the first one is because I forgot to inform him that the round had started and only gave him a heads up towards the end, and that is why his game was not much earlier played in the round, because I just forgot to tell him things were happening. Completely my bad, but we still got everything done. What else do we got? How did humans meet starters? Humans were on second turn, at least in the first game of each matchup. So they captured the corner 3 times, earning 1 win and 2 ties. They played 1 adjacent corner, that was Delial, and who won that game. Meeting center starters, they responded with corners twice and won both games, and a side once and tied that game. And playing in a side, the only game we saw that was one of Brenn's games, and he played next to the side starter in one of the touching corners, and he tied that game. These are very small samples. I don't think they mean much, but I just thought it would be interesting to check. I thought it was very surprising that 75% of corners were met by being captured, because, I've made videos about doing that. I think that's a kind of underrated option, but I also think, part of it being an underrated option is I thought it was pretty rare. and it seems to maybe be a lot more common than I thought. Again, small samples, hard to tell. Can we go to the next slide? All right, game of the round contenders. So Wavy's move 2, capture from 6 of the opponent's weak corner in 9, had a big combo against one of their recaptures, and against the other recapture, hits them with 4, setting up big combos in both 5 and 7, and winning immediately. Thought this was a really elegant game, just clear game plan from move 1, well understood, well synergized against their hand, really nicely played. Piggy, I thought, was in a somewhat dangerous looking position, but found a really good move in 9 that I think was the best move and better than my ideas of how to stabilize in 1 or 8, and then found this brilliant finisher in 6 on move 6. So I think the game of the round is between them. I'm really not sure. When I made the first video, I thought, yeah, Wavy's game's the best this round. When I'm making this video, 20 minutes ago when I was talking about Piggy's game, I thought Piggy's game's definitely the best game. And now thinking about both, I don't know. I'm really curious what you think. Do you prefer Wavy's, Piggyman's? Do you think someone else played the best game of the round? Those definitely would be my pick for contenders, and I think played really great games they should be pretty proud of. I don't know who I prefer. I'm going to leave that open, call it a tie for game of the round. And that's it. See you next time for round 3. It's the rule set is up. I should say what it is here. It is level 8, no rares, maximum of 2 9/9 corners. So you could have more 9/9 cards if they weren't corners. Maximum of 2 9/8 corners. Again, has to be the only restriction is on corners. And no cards in the hand can have the exact same number combination. So if you have a 9/9 4/3, you could not then have a 3/4 9/9. You could have a 2/4 9/9. You could have a 4/4. You could have whatever other numbers are there, but you can't have the exact same 4 numbers on 2 cards. So having exact opposites not allowed. Hopefully leads to interesting hands. I've just put together I think all of the AI hands are now complete, so I'll be ready for anyone who wants to play. And should be interesting to see what people do. I think there are a few different directions to go. Sort of hinted at the rule set is to have 2 9/9 corners, 2 9/8 corners, and a utility card. But I think there are a lot of directions to go. That doesn't have to be the way one goes at all. Anytime there's a restriction on something, I think it's easy to start thinking of the rule set in terms of that restriction. Of like, ooh, whatever they gave me left must be the right way to go. And I think those are very powerful cards. That's why I restricted them. But there are other viable level 8 cards to play around with. So I'll be interested to see what happens. We've got 7 contenders left. I'm expecting 3 or 4 of them to advance through this round. I think this is a really tough round. And we'll see how it goes. So see you next time.